I wanted to see how many Christmas cards I could make from this one collection and use each set in a way that felt different and unique to me. When I got to the border dies, I thought, could I actually build a full card using a simple border die? So that's what I'm doing today. I'm using the Candy King Christmas border die from the Sweet Borders die set of the Spellbinders Candy Christmas collection to create an entire card start to finish. And if you love learning new ways to stretch your supplies, stick around because I'm going to show you a really fun technique to create a background panel you can use on so many different cards. All that and more coming up. Hi, I'm Jeannie Scott, the Messy Crafter. Welcome to the Upper Craft Room, where we make a mess and create something beautiful out of it. Okay, I'm going to start by inking my two backgrounds using Gina K Design inks. Here I'm using Light Lilac, Passionate Pink, and I believe this is Red Velvet. I'll have all the supplies that I use in this video listed in the description so that if you want to check that out, you know where to go. I'm inking up the whole panel that I have cut at 4.5 by 5.25 in a diagonal direction. And I'm not too worried about the ink blending here because most of it's going to be covered up anyway. But the color is going to peek through the die cut, so I want it to show through in different color tones, which is why I'm doing this diagonally. This is the fun background technique that I told you about at the beginning of the video, where I'm going to create straight lines and use different tones all the way down the card panel. Now, I don't end up using this the way I thought I would, but I wanted you to see that you can create something like this even if you don't have a stencil, and you can use this for so many different card ideas. I'm just using masking magic and post-it notes to get those straight lines. Now, you don't have to have masking magic. You can use 2 post-it notes or any type of masking tape to get this result. I'm switching between ink colors, starting with the lightest to darkest and starting all over again with the lightest to darkest until I get to the end of the card so that I can get that cohesive blend. And look how fun that background is. Now it's time to start assembling everything we've created. I've already cut out several of these border strips, probably about a dozen or so, just to have them ready and save time. I'm bringing in the backgrounds that we've inked up, and I'm starting with the one that I inked up diagonally. I think that if I would have put a little more ink on that panel, that it wouldn't be as splotchy as what it is. But that's okay. Most of it's going to be covered up, so it's going to turn out fine. I brought in my Ranger Media Grip mat underneath. I actually cut it in half so it fits better on my desk. It keeps everything from sliding around while I'm working and catches any glue that might go past the edges, so I don't end up with a sticky mess on my surface. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, I'm using Barely Art Precision Glue. I like this glue because of the no clog tip. I use it on most of my detailed die cuts and just about all of my card panels. Now, as I start laying down the strips, you'll notice I'm not keeping them perfectly even across the card. I'm staggering them a bit, and I'm being also mindful of where the candy canes are going. So I'm offsetting them so they don't stack directly on top of each other. It gives the background a little bit of movement and makes it look more playful. I got this idea from Natasha Foote. I can't find the video again, or I'd link it below, but she's got a lot of fun ideas, so I'll leave the link to her channel in the description for you just in case you're interested. Now I'm cutting off the ends of the strips that I don't need, and I can use them on another card. Now it's time for the greening, and I'm using a sentiment from the Dancing Christmas Sentiments that's part of the Dancing Christmas collection. Not all collections come with sentiments that will go with cards exactly how I see them, so I don't mind mixing and matching collections. I feel like that's a bonus of having collections in my stash. They're not meant to be used only within that specific collection. I decided to use the Merry Gingermas sentiment, but I don't end up using it in the end because I'm using VersaFine Clair ink, and that's a great ink for stamping crisp images and words and detailed dies. And it's a pigment ink, so it dries slower, which means you have to give it time to dry, in which I did not, and I smudged it. So in a little bit, I'm going to show you how I fixed it. I'm using Reskid 125-pound cardstock, which I only use for card bases, and 99.9% of my cards I use white cardstock. And I like a very heavy weight cardstock so that my cards are sturdy and can stand on their own without falling over or bowing while standing. I use the Score Buddy to score my card base, and now I'm cutting down my card panel 1/8 of an inch on all 4 sides because it was a little larger than my card base and I wanted it to be the same all the way around. However, I cut a little bit short on one side, but it didn't look bad to me, so I went with it. I was trying to center it, but I didn't like how that looked, so I lined it up on one side and let the card base show on the other 3 sides, and it worked out just fine. And there's one card down. Now I'm bringing in the second panel we inked with the fun background, but I decided to cover most of it up because I didn't feel like I put enough ink down on the panel, and the ink is not blended well enough for me, so I pivoted. I created a different card, much like the first one, but I put the sweet border strips all the way across so the stripes didn't show, and the pink peeked through the strips. Say that 3 times fast. I'm laying these out just so I can get a feel for how I want the card to look before I commit to gluing anything down. And I'm bringing in that sentiment again, but I don't end up using that because it just doesn't feel right on this card. I'm cutting it down 1/8 of an inch now before I glue the strips, so I don't cut the strips too short. I know I did that on the first one, but that's because I didn't think about it beforehand. And on that card, even though it turned out great, it was a concern. I don't always create these cards before I record. When I get a new set or I decide to create something, I always turn on my camera. And whatever happens, happens, and then I edit. I would probably save a lot of time in editing if I did create these cards first before recording, but I really like doing it this way so that I can show you my mistakes and how I fix them. You're going to notice as I'm gluing these down that I'm offsetting the candy canes again to create that movement in the card. I'm leaving a thin line of pink showing in between each strip, and I'm just eyeballing that. I'm not much of a measurer because I like to create and I don't like wasting time. Now, if I need to measure, I will, but for this kind of thing, I'm pretty good at just doing it this way. I'm using a stamping block to hold down the strips to give them time to adhere while I move on to the next strip. I'm cutting off the edges and I'm using these Tim Holtz recoiled scissors, and man, are these a game changer. I get a really close cut with these. I absolutely love these scissors for getting this kind of a cut. I got my card base cut and I'm lining up the panel to have 1/8 of an inch border all the way around the card. It's time to add the sentiment. I love these big scripty fonts. I'm using Spellbinders Classic Christmas Etched dies. They don't sell this anymore. This is an old set, but check your stash. You may have something similar. And if not, I'll link some below that are a lot like this in the supply list that you might like. I wanted to add the shadow die because I think the sentiment is getting lost on the panel with so much going on. So I'm inking up a piece of Hammer Mill 100-pound smooth cardstock to match the colors on the panels behind the Sweet Borders die cut strips. This is a gorgeous, vibrant pink color. I think it's a great Christmas color, and I'm making sure to put enough ink down this time to get a nice blend of ink and not get that blotchy look. I'm using the Ultra sticky mat to hold down the cardstock, and I'm picking it up with the Tool-in-One lifter tool from Spellbinders. When you're lifting that off the sticky mat, you want to make sure not to damage the cardstock. With the sticky mat and the cardstock being saturated with ink, I want to be careful to lift it off slowly. They don't sell this, unfortunately, anymore either, but Cricut sells a great spatula tool that would work great for this. Again, I'll link all the tools and supplies I use in the description below. I have the shadow die cut, and I use gold cardstock to cut out the font. And now it's time to glue the Merry Christmas font on top of the shadow die cut. I squeezed out some glue on the Ranger Media Grip Mat, and I'm using a makeup sponge to apply a thin layer of the glue to the sentiment pieces. And I'm trying to be very careful not to get glue on the front of the sentiment. I place each piece on the shadow die right away after applying the glue because I'm only applying a thin layer and I don't want it to dry, so I do it immediately after applying the glue. I'm lining up the sentiment with the shadow die, but sometimes it can be a bit tricky to get that sentiment centered because it's such a delicate font, but you can just pick it up and off the surface and move it around, getting it just where you want it while you still have time before the glue dries. This is such a fun, easy card to put together that I think I'll be using border dies a lot more to create these types of cards. I'm very much enjoying putting this together. I'm mailing out Christmas cards again this year, and I've only done that a few times in my life. And last year was the first time I had mailed any in like 20 years. When I was younger and raising 5 kids, I felt like it was just another something to do, and so I just didn't. However, I didn't get many either, and I was okay with that. But now that my kids are raised and out of the house and I'm creating my own Christmas cards, I don't know. I think when you create them yourself, there's a whole new meaning behind it. Plus, you get the joy of creating it, and then you get the joy of giving it. I mean, how great is that? Okay, so if you do end up getting glue on the front of your card, let it dry just a bit. And before it's totally dry, but not too wet, take something to gently scrape it off, like you just seen me do. If you wait too long or while it's wet, especially if you're using gold like I am, it'll dull the color and take away the shine. Now it's time to adhere the greetings to the cards. You can see how I covered up that smudge greeting on the first card we created on the right. This is the Sizzix push and pickup tool, and it comes with an adhesive eraser. I'm using that to get some of the specks of glue off of the card panel. Now I've decided to pop up the greeting on this card to give that added dimension using round dimensional foam adhesives. Okay, so I'm finishing up the last bits of this card, and I really love how those uneven candy cane borders give it just enough movement without feeling busy. It's simple, it's clean, and it still has all that fun Christmas energy, just from one border die. Okay, so now I'm bringing in that first card, the one that I had to fix the smudged ink on. I ended up being able to peel that short strip off and added a longer piece. And now I'm adding the big Scripty font to cover it up even more. I'm using Barely Arched Precision Glue to lay this sentiment flat. I felt like this card has enough dimension going on with more of the background panel showing and the shorter, uneven sized pieces. The thing I love about using glue is that you have more time to adjust the greeting if you don't nail that placement the first time. The second one turned out so fun. The mix of colors and the shorter borders give it a totally different personality. Now I'm adding a few embellishments on this card to give it a really finished look. Just enough bling to pull everything together. These are the pearls that I've had in my stash for years, and I decided to pull this tray out because I didn't have the right color in my go-to embellishments. So check your stash when you're creating. You never know what you may already have on hand, and you can never have enough sparkle or shine, in my opinion. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I truly appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so YouTube tells other crafters about it. And subscribe so you never miss another video, and tap the notification bell so that you get notified every time we put out a new tutorial, tip, or crafty inspiration. Until next time, keep creating, stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.